People may not be as intrigued by pyramids as they used to be, but what Joe Rogan has to say about them might just pique your interest. One thing to consider is how they really built these structures, with good old pulleys or with technology far more advanced than what we can imagine, as Joe Rogan seems to think. We're still waiting on answers from scientists who seem just as perplexed as us. Some are even terrified. But why is that? Well, let's have a look at some of the mysteries found in the pyramids in Egypt. Number 1. Were the pyramids made from advanced machinery? Joe Rogan believes the Egyptians used advanced machinery instead of just pulleys to build pyramids. Why does he think that? Well, some researchers in Egypt have stumbled upon a 4,500-year-old ramp system that was used to pull alabaster stones out of a quarry. This system could offer some insight into how the Egyptians built the pyramids. A group of archaeologists from the University of Liverpool and the French Institute for Oriental Archaeology in Cairo found this ramp at an ancient quarry site in the eastern desert. It dates back to the time of Pharaoh Khufu, who is said to have built the Great Pyramid at Giza. The ramp system consists of a central ramp with 2 staircases and several post holes. The post holes were used to pull up heavy alabaster blocks using ropes attached to the sleds. Although this is clearly an important discovery, it's easier to say how significant it really is once archaeologists release their research. But this discovery isn't the only reason Joe Rogan believes that pyramids were made by advanced technology. During an episode of the JRE podcast, Joe Rogan expressed his amazement that ancient civilizations could construct architectural marvels like the pyramids. Rogan was curious about how civilizations so old could have such advanced knowledge to build impressive structures like the Great Pyramid of Giza. He wondered about the society and culture behind it, and how they managed to be so smart, considering the pyramids are 5,000 years old. The Great Pyramid of Giza alone is made up of 2,300,000 stones, and its engineering is mind-boggling. He also thought of the possibility that human civilization may have been even more advanced in the past, and that something like an asteroid impact may have set us back. He referred to the Younger Dryas impact theory and expressed his agreement with the idea put forward by Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson that humans had reached a high level of sophistication but were struck by comet impacts.
This ancient apocalypse 12,800 years ago that wiped that from the human memory banks almost completely, not entirely completely because there were survivors, but removed most of it.
Graham has repeatedly brought up one example that we think you need to take a look at as well.
Is above the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid are 5 further chambers, and these chambers are roofed and floored with granite beams that weigh about 70 tons each, and there are hundreds of them.
What they had done was leave behind something that was so stupendous.
What they had done was leave behind something that was so stupendous, so monstrously impressive, that it would transcend time.
Yeah.
And that you would have to look at it even thousands and thousands of years later.
Number 2, another theory suggests that sound waves were used to levitate stones. Researchers around the world are still trying to figure out how the pyramids of Giza were built, so they're always looking for new studies on the topic. A study found on the Ancient Origins website says that the Egyptians used sound in building the Great Pyramid in Giza and depended on the dead end within the rock inside the pyramid room as a resonance tube that produced ultrasonic waves at a frequency of around 5 Hz. This raises the question of how important sound was to the ancient Egyptians, and if we can find any evidence of sound being used by other ancient cultures. A historian from the 10th century, Abul Hassan Ali al-Masudi, wrote about ancient Egypt and the methods they used to move massive stones, including those used to build the pyramids. He said that symbols on a magic papyrus were placed under each stone, and then a metal rod was hit against the stone to make it levitate. According to al-Masudi, the stone was then moved along a path with metal poles on each side. Some believe these poles could have been used to create high-frequency sounds that caused levitation. Although there is no solid proof that the pyramids were built using acoustic levitation, the Great Pyramid of Giza does have some impressive acoustic abilities, like amplifying sounds at specific frequencies. The people who built the pyramids in Giza clearly had a lot of knowledge about sound and its effects, including levitation. Researchers all over the world are still trying to figure out the design of the pyramids of Giza, so these experiments might seem pointless, but the UK-Brazil team and the University of Bristol team both used different methods to achieve levitation. The UK-Brazil team was able to surpass previous limits on the size of the object that could be levitated by using 3 ultrasonic transducers in a tripod arrangement. The combined effects of the transducers created a stationary sound wave that negated the force of gravity in a particular area. Meanwhile, the University of Bristol team used a single ultrasonic transducer with a sound reflector to create a standing sound wave that stayed in place even after being reflected back on itself. These experiments showed that levitation through sound waves is possible, and that there are different ways to do it. Future experiments may find even more ways to use sound to overcome gravity, and some of them might be more powerful than what we have seen so far. While Graham did say that we should consider the possibility that psychic powers may have been in play, Joe Rogan might be onto something here. Number 3. Another theory is that there's a mysterious void inside the Great Pyramid. Scientists announced on Thursday that there's a hidden void in Egypt's Great Pyramid of Giza that's at least 100 feet long. It's said to resemble the dimensions of the pyramid's Grand Gallery, but what's inside and its purpose still needs to be determined. This is the first prominent inner structure discovered in the 4,500-year-old pyramid since the 1800s. An archaeologist and Egyptologist who is also a National Geographic emerging explorer was quoted saying that this is the discovery of the century, and no one even imagined such a big void above the Grand Gallery. The discovery came from the Scan Pyramids project, an international mission aimed at non-invasively peering into Egypt's most giant pyramids. The project had previously announced the detection of some interesting voids and anomalies. It is not surprising that the pyramid's interiors are said to be more pockmarked than people imagine. The recent discovery of the Great Pyramid came as a shock and is considered the most significant breakthrough yet. Muon radiography, a type of imaging that was first used in the pyramids of Giza, was employed to make this discovery. Chris Morris, a physicist from Los Alamos National Laboratory who is knowledgeable in muon imaging, says that it's a remarkable find, and he is even a bit envious of the team who made the discovery. Muon radiography works by using muons, which are tiny subatomic particles that constantly shower Earth from cosmic rays colliding with our atmosphere. Scientists can detect these muons with special films and detectors that track their 3D movements. Since muons can pass through empty spaces more quickly than solid materials, scientists can map out these solid and empty parts of a structure by placing multiple muon detectors around it. Roy Schwitters, a particle physicist from the University of Texas at Austin, says that the muons are just right, as they lose enough energy for scientists to detect them, but not so much that they get absorbed by the target. Kunihiro Morishima, a physicist from Nagoya University, who is also part of the Scan Pyramids team, says that they're thrilled to have made this discovery, and that this is just the beginning of what they can learn from the pyramids. Nagoya University led a team that placed muon detectors inside the Great Pyramids starting in December 2015, and they collected data for several months. In March 2016, researchers were surprised to find that a part inside the pyramid was letting more muons through than they thought. This meant that there was a 100-foot-long empty space that looked like the Grand Gallery. Other teams from Japan and France worked to check the results from August 2016 to July 2017, but each used a different way to see the muons and found the same thing, a big empty space. The results were very accurate and showed that there was less than a 1 in a million chance that it was a mistake. This level of accuracy is the same as when new particles like the Higgs boson are felt. Co-author of the study, Mehdi Tayyubi, said that they have yet to learn much about the empty space, but they know that it exists and was not expected. Tayyubi and his team emphasize that they don't have a clue what this void is, but Egyptologists have already come up with some theories. A Cambridge archaeologist, Spence, thinks the void could have been used during the construction of the Great Pyramid as a ramp to move the massive blocks into place. Spence says the position of the void supports this theory, and it's too well placed for anything else. An Egyptologist at the American University in Cairo, Salima Ikram, believes the void's location above the Grand Gallery might indicate its connection to the construction of the corridor. However, she humorously adds that speculation is always welcome, but it's best to take it with a grain of salt. The purpose of the void is still a mystery, but Tayyubi and the Scan Pyramids team are just getting started.
Journal, they found what they believe is evidence for a huge void above the Grand Gallery that has never been known before.
In related news, the Egyptian Antiquities Ministry made an exciting announcement about a new discovery in Saqqara, which was once also an ancient Egyptian burial ground. They found a funerary temple belonging to a queen near her husband Pharaoh Teti's pyramid. If you don't know who he is, Pharaoh Teti ruled Egypt from 2323 BC to 2291 BC, so of course there was a special place to commemorate him after his death. This temple was made of stone and had 3 mud brick warehouses on the southeastern side where offerings were made to the queen and her husband. During the excavation, a team of Egyptian archaeologists also found a series of burial shafts near the pyramid that contained remains of people who lived during Egypt's 18th and 19th dynasties. And while that was interesting, what really shocked them was when they stumbled upon a 13-foot-long papyrus that contained chapter 17 of the Book of the Dead. This manuscript was used by ancient Egyptians to guide the deceased through the afterlife. The papyrus was particularly interesting as it had the owner's name Perwer F written on it, which was also found on one of the coffins and 4 Shabti figures. The scientists are currently analyzing the text, and it is yet to be seen if this newly discovered copy of chapter 17 has the same question and answer format as other copies. But it is known that other copies include a series of questions and answers, which were like a cheat sheet for those trying to navigate the afterlife. Now you know why it's so important. Along with the Book of the Dead papyrus, the team also found over 50 wooden sarcophagi, a Senate board game, a riverboat with rowers, a statue of Bata Sokar Osiris, wooden masks, and an Anubis shrine, and a burial sanctuary dedicated to an Old Kingdom queen. These Egyptians were really like us everyday people, huh? These relics were found in 52 separate burial shafts, ranging from 33 to 40 feet deep in Memphis, the former capital of ancient Egypt, and date back to the New Kingdom era. The cemetery itself is even older, predating the coffins by at least 8 centuries. This adds to the historical significance of the mission's findings, and it's another piece of the puzzle to the site's origins, as stated in an official statement by Egypt's Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities. In related news, hundreds of mummies and a pyramid of an unknown queen were unearthed at Saqqara. Recently, archaeologists in Giza made a major discovery, about 100 years after the discovery of King Tut's tomb. It is said to change what we know about ancient Egyptian royalty. The discovery was made at Saqqara, where hundreds of tombs were uncovered, possibly including those of King Tut's closest advisors and generals. An archaeologist on the dig mentioned that they found not only a large limestone sarcophagus, but also 300 coffins from the New Kingdom period and a lot of mummies. The coffins have individual and unique faces and are adorned with images from the Book of the Dead, just in case they were found by a future civilization. Each coffin has the name of the deceased and often depicts the 4 sons of Horus, who were known to protect the organs of the dead. The most exciting discovery, however, was a pyramid that the archaeologists believe belonged to an ancient Egyptian queen, of whom they were previously unaware. According to Dr. West, they have just found out about a queen named Neith, who was unknown in history until now. It's incredible to discover a new queen and rewrite history. They say Neith was considered the Egyptian goddess of war, as well as the patroness of the city of Sais. She was a major figure in Egypt for a long time, from the pre-dynastic period to the arrival of the Romans. It is said that she was around during the creation of the world, and is even credited as the mother of Ra, the sun god, king of deities and father of creation. She must have been quite a woman. Some tales even suggest that she was the mother of Sobek, the crocodile god, and worshipped as the creator of birth. Neith also played several roles in the afterlife due to her association with war, weaving, and wisdom. Even though not much is known about the real Queen Neith, the discovery of her pyramid is expected to shed more light on her role. Dr. West believes that the newly found burials from the New Kingdom, which are different from previous discoveries at Saqqara that date back to the Old Kingdom, are a unique find for the site.
The similarities, not just between pyramids, but between construction methods all over the world. In Japan, I had no idea that they had made the sarcophagus covers in Japan that were exactly the same shape as the one, and oddly shaped, exactly the same as the ones they made in Egypt.
Number 5, a geometric miracle tunnel. Kathleen Martinez and her team from the University of Santo Domingo are exploring a temple beneath the city of Taposiris Magna in Egypt when they stumbled upon a tunnel 43 feet below the surface. The tunnel was around 6 feet tall and was built through 4,281 feet of sandstone, which the team referred to as a geometric miracle. According to the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, the design of the tunnel is similar to Greece's Tunnel of Eupalinos, which was a 6th century BC aqueduct. Some parts of the Taposiris Magna tunnel are underwater and its purpose remains unknown. Somehow we always have more questions than answers. Martinez is hopeful that this tunnel could lead to the discovery of Cleopatra VII's lost tomb, which she has been searching for over the past 18 years. Previous excavations in the area have given clues that Cleopatra, the last ruler of Egypt's Ptolemy dynasty, may have been buried there. The team believes that the temple of Taposiris Magna was once dedicated to the god Osiris and his queen, the goddess Isis. Isis has a solid connection to Cleopatra, and coins with the names and images of both Alexander the Great and Cleopatra, as well as figurines of Isis, have been found in the area. Apparently the temple is said to have burial shafts with Greco-Roman burials in them, and if rumors are true, Cleopatra and Mark Antony might be buried in tombs like these, if they even exist. Even if the tombs aren't found, though, the excavations of the ruins could give us a better understanding of the ancient city. So far, they've found some interesting artifacts like pieces of pottery and a block of limestone. Now, remember what the former Minister for Antiquities, Zahi Hawass, said almost a decade ago. He believed that finding the burial places of Cleopatra and Mark Antony would be one of the biggest discoveries of the 21st century, and that's exactly what they're now hoping to stumble upon. The ratio of the pyramid's height to half its base is equal to the mathematical constant pi, which is approximately 314. The pyramid's slope angle of 51.5 degrees is also significant, as it is the complement of the angle formed by the intersection of the diagonal of a square and its side. This angle is related to the golden ratio and can be used to generate the Fibonacci sequence. Egyptian empires come up often when we discuss the Egyptian pyramids, don't they? When the old Egyptian kingdom's 4th dynasty fell, it brought an end to the kingdom's extravagance as well. The final great pyramids at Giza were built by Menkaure, the last but one pharaoh of the 4th dynasty. But the 5th dynasty made its own contribution to history. You see, the last pharaoh of the dynasty, Unas, constructed a modest yet remarkable pyramid at Saqqara. Although small in size, the pyramid was impressive with thousands of hieroglyphics on the inside walls arranged in columns from the floor to the ceiling, each column a different spell. What's even more remarkable is that these hieroglyphics were found to have been inscribed individually. They weren't just stenciled on. These inscriptions are now known as the pyramid texts, and many studies have been conducted on their contents. But what makes them so important? The objective of the pyramid text was to protect the king's body in 3 stages. As the king's body was kept in a sarcophagus inside the pyramid, in fact, Unis's sarcophagus is a beautiful relic, and still has all its vivid colors as there was no weathering inside the pyramid. When the king passed away, the first stage of the text was all about keeping his body safe and sound in the chamber. They made sure that nobody disturbed him until it was time for him to set out on his next journey. These spells kept his body protected from things like scorpions and robbers. The second stage was when the pharaoh journeyed towards the west in the sky. They had a set of spells to ensure that nothing would get in the way of his journey. The Egyptians liked to be one step ahead. The West was seen as the land of the dead because that's where the sun seemed to die each day before being reborn in the east the next morning. Tombs and pyramids were built facing west, and when someone died they were said to have gone west. So when the king passed away, he was believed to make his journey across the sky towards the west on a solar boat, which showed how devoted the 5th dynasty was to the sun god. Finally, the last set of spells was all about making sure that the pharaoh would be accepted into the next world when he arrived. The spells provided alternative options for him to get accepted, like sending a ladder or climbing steps to the next world. These spells made sure that the pharaoh would get in at no matter what. The Old Kingdom left behind some really valuable artifacts like the pyramid texts. These have been giving modern-day archaeologists a ton of helpful info, and they're still trying to figure out all the secrets from those long-lost empires. Now that you have heard of the pyramid texts, there's still more to unravel. Well, there's this mysterious text within those texts that is called the Cannibal Hymn. It may be just as bad as it sounds. Egyptologists have a good understanding of what it's all about. Basically, it talks about a pharaoh eating the insides of his enemies and even some parts of the gods. The idea was that if a pharaoh defeated someone and ate them, he would gain their power, and if he ate pieces of the gods, he'd gain their power too, while wondering if it ever worked for them. But here's the thing. Some people wonder if the Egyptians actually took this idea seriously. Did pharaohs actually practice cannibalism, and did the Egyptians in general do so? Most Egyptologists don't believe so, but there was one guy, E. A. Wallace Budge, who was the curator of the British Museum's Egyptian collection, who wrote a book in the 1920s saying that he did believe it. The book talked about the story of Osiris, who was believed to be the first person to come back to life after being chopped into pieces and then put back together. According to the legend, the Egyptians believed in resurrection, so some people think that the story was made up simply to stop Egyptians from eating each other. By saying that their bodies were needed for the next life, they would hopefully stop their cannibalistic ways. But not everyone agrees with this idea. Most Egyptologists don't think that Egyptians were actually cannibals, mainly because there's no evidence to prove it. No bones with human bite marks have been found, and there's no mention of cannibalism in any texts, and we're so glad because of the lack of evidence. Many experts believe that the cannibal hymn was just a metaphor and not an accurate description of Egyptian society. But if that's the case, what could it really be about? Who knows? Number 6, Pyramid of Meidum. While exploring the archaeological site of Meidum in Lower Egypt, which includes a giant pyramid and several mud brick structures, master archaeologists stumbled upon a unique discovery. Meidum's pyramid was Egypt's first straight-sided one, but unfortunately it had partially collapsed due to its structure. However, the collapse allowed the archaeologists to uncover an inner core, which helped them gain a deeper understanding of the ancient civilization's pyramid-building techniques. As reported on Amazon Prime's Secrets of Archaeology, the archaeologists also experienced a bit of a scare. The 2014 series explained how south of Saqqara, near the oasis of Fayum, the archaeologists discovered a pyramid of historical significance due to its distinct features. This pyramid, known as the Pyramid of Meidum, was built for Pharaoh Snefru, the founder of the 4th dynasty. It was different from all other pyramids because the architects working for Pharaoh Snefru believed they had found the secret to the perfect form. They abandoned the previous step structure, filled in the platforms, and made the line of the pyramid smooth and sloping. The documentary talked about how the statues of the ancient pharaoh and his wife were discovered in the rubble. It said that it was a groundbreaking idea, but something went wrong, and the external supporting walls fell in, causing the blocks of limestone to slip and revealing the internal part of the pyramid that we see today. Similar to the pyramid in Saqqara, the medium pyramid was surrounded by the tombs of princes and dignitaries. The statues of Prince Rahotep and his wife can be seen at the Cairo Museum. The archaeologists had a strange experience while they were there. When they found the statues, they were frightened by their lifelike expressions. In fact, they looked so real that it took them a minute to come to terms with a statue looking back at them. But the scientists moved past the jump scare and were able to explore the inside of the cave that had opened itself up to them. We'll discuss more of this in the future. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to Unknown Realms of Technology for more exciting videos.